Hello, and welcome to this week's Watercolor Wednesday video. Okay, I'm going to be using this Blick Premier paper. It's cold press, a watercolor block. I love this paper. It is a little bit more affordable than Arches, but in my opinion, it's really good, just like Arches cold press. So I'm going to start by just getting a couple of things ready. We're going to be painting a fall wreath. And in the center of the wreath, I'm going to write the word grateful. So I've got my pencil here, maybe one that's sharpened. Here we go. And I'm just going to lightly draw a circle, and it does not have to be perfect. This is just a guide for me to be able to see kind of where I'm going to put things. And I know you can't see that, but I'm trying to get it as light as possible so it won't show through a ton. And then in the center here, I'm going to write just a little, I'm going to write grateful, but I'm not going to write the entire way. I'm going to write it with brush lettering, just the letters. I'm going to place them where I want them. And then this allows me to change it later because it's just in pencil. But let's see if you can see that. I've just written it out, a really basic version of it. Okay, and now we can go ahead and get started. We're doing a fall wreath, and I was trying to think of a good color scheme because I didn't want to do your typical red, brown, yellow, orange. So we're going to do a touch of that, but we're going to go more blush, pink, golden yellow, green. We're going to do that instead. And to start out, let's see, I'm actually going to use the pink first. So this is brilliant pink. And I want it to be a little bit more on the brown side, so I'm going to mix in a little bit of my raw umber violet. A little bit of this yellow ochre, kind of brownish color. And then, oh, I totally forgot. So 1 second, before we get into that, actually, I wanted to show you really quick how to paint leaves, because I know that is a struggle for some people. So this is just an extra pad of paper that I have. And I go into more detail about leaves in my Intro to Watercolor Flowers course, but I did want to touch on it really quick here because we are going to be painting a lot of leaves. So I'm using a size 8 round brush, and I've loaded my paintbrush up with color. And the key here is you don't want to hold your brush upright like this, straight up and down. You kind of want to hold it at an angle. And I know that feels a little bit weird to start out, but just trust me. And let's see. Okay, so you're going to just kind of barely tap down on the paper and then apply lots of pressure while you drag your brush and slowly lift up the brush. So then you've got this kind of leaf shape happening. And the reason I like to use my brush instead of just kind of outlining, which you can totally do that too, but I just like the more organic feel that it gives my painting when I just use my brush. Newton paper, I feel like you can see this kind of white spot. It's got like a coating on it or something. I'm not sure what's happening, but I love this paper, but you kind of get the idea. So again, pressing down and then slowly pulling back up. And there's a really good exercise for this. Basically, you just do a continuous line and practice pressing down with your brush and pulling up without letting your brush leave the paper. And this is a really good exercise for leaves and petals. So what I was saying about outlining, sorry, I'm kind of jumping all around here, is I've seen a lot of people, draw their outline like this and then fill it in. And you can totally do that. You can, especially if you have really good paper. But if you're using something like a Canson, artist pad, or even something like this Winsor Newton, the paint can dry really quickly and you'll kind of see the outline of that leaf. So I'll let that dry for just a second so you can see what I mean. So if you want a wider leaf using this technique, what I like to do is just do 2 strokes like that next to each other. So I've kind of curved them outward. So this one I'm curving up just slightly, and this I'm overlapping that first one, but curving down slightly. And then I can quickly finish that center off. Sometimes I leave the white space in the center too, and that's great as well. It's all personal preference. So let me show you this. I'm going to fill it in. You can see that outline. And you may want that look. Again, all up to you. But if you want to avoid that, that's the reason why, is you let paint dry too fast, or it's dried and then you've added the color over it. So how to mix the perfect leaf green. And this is something that we'll talk a little bit about when we dive into the wreath itself. So I'm just going to quickly paint a little green swatch of all of my greens on my palette right here. So this is Hooker's green. This is permanent green. And I don't know if the camera is picking up just how vibrant that is. This is sap green, which is one of my all-time favorites. This is undersea green, which is really nice on its own. And this is Perylene green. Right here, this kind of dark, really rich green. It looks almost black on the video. I promise it's like a really nice green. And I believe this is phthalo green. So again, very vibrant. And if you remember nothing else, just remember to add in a little bit of red to your green, especially these more vibrant greens. Now this one's leaning a little more blue, so you'd add in a little more orange. Again, that's a little more than I was planning on talking about in this video. So I can talk about it in a future one, but you want to add in a little bit of red because it is across from green on the color wheel. So they're going to neutralize each other. So with this sap green, which is already really nice, you can kind of see up in the corner here. And then I'm going to choose a red. Let's see. I believe this one is deep scarlet. You don't need a lot, but I'm just going to mix that in a little bit. And I know it looks really brown in the video, but I promise with a vibrant flower, the more kind of muted and brown your leaves look, the more your flowers will pop. So I hope that helps. Okay, now we're going to just jump into the wreath itself. And like I said, I'm going to be using fall colors, but non-traditional fall colors. And when you're thinking about your leaf, or your wreath, sorry, you want to make sure that your leaves are all following the same direction. And let me just quickly show you on here. So we've got our wreath base that I've sketched out, and you want to make sure that all of your leaves are pointing the same direction. And this will make more sense as I start, but you can imagine little V arrows kind of pointing around. And I'll give you tips on how to make sure that they're all pointing the same way. But if you get leaves that are kind of pointing this way, and it can start to look a little bit messy, unless you're doing it intentionally, then by all means do it. But it's easier if you just keep them all going the same way. Okay, so to start out, I'm going to use, this is, I believe it's the colors we mixed last time. So it was like a yellow and an orange and black, but I'm just going to be using yellow ochre because it gives the same kind of feel. And I'm going to go ahead and paint some leaves. And I'm making sure that my stems are ending up about where my guideline is. And as I'm painting, I'm kind of skipping around here because I'm going to be adding in more colors later. So one tip that I was going to show you, and I'll show you on the next round of leaves, is just simply to turn your paper as you go. I'll do that in a minute. Let's see. I'll move to this kind of blushy brown color next. So for this one, we're going to be doing the same thing that we did with our leaves before, but this time I'm going to make a small stem and then add my leaves to that. Okay, then I'm going to turn my paper, because then I'm just working with the same angle. I don't have to think about turning my brush any certain way. And I'm being mindful of words that the word that I have written down here, just so I make sure that I'm going to have room for it later. Okay, so you'll notice that I've added one type of leaf in one color, another type of leaf in, they're all the same color, and I'm kind of skipping around the wreath. As I continue adding layers, it's going to feel more full the more I go. So for this one, let's see, we'll do kind of a yellow ochre mixed with pink. So it'll be more of a brownish flesh. And I'm going to do a larger leaf here. And I want this leaf to be a little more textured, so I'm just going to add some little strokes along the side. I'm basically just tapping my brush to the paper and then letting the colors blend in. So this part is a little bit tedious just because you're going around and around and around, just adding a little bit at a time. But I love it because it starts to come together every time you make a pass. So for this one, I'm going to go back to that green that we mixed, but I'm going to add more water to it to lighten it up quite a bit. I know we said a little bit on the brown side. I want it even more on the brown side. So I'm going to add in a touch of orange. And then something slightly different. I mean, it's the same kind of feel, but it's just a different color. And you can see it looks really brown on the palette, but it looks really nice on my painting. Ended up being a little bit larger than I wanted, but that's okay. That is okay. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you probably know my love for Opera Rose. I can't not add it in. This might be a bad choice, but I just think it's so pretty. So I'm mixing it with that brilliant pink and a little bit of shell pink just to mute it down a hair. Not too much, but if you don't want to use pink, you use brown or a darker green or even an orange color. Right. I'm going to go back to that sap green that we mixed. Add a little bit of that orange color. I'm going to keep it that darker shade. So we've got two versions of this. One that's added a lot of water, made it lighter, and then one that's using less water. It's going to make it a little bit darker. Because we do want a little bit of contrast. And I can already tell putting this down that it doesn't look too much different than this. So I'm just going to add in a bit of this perylene green. And then a bit of this perylene maroon. I'm going to offset a little bit. There we go. And I'm holding my brush a lot closer to the bristles, just so I have a little bit more control. If you hear my baby squealing, he's fine. He's just refusing to take his nap. It's nap time right now, and he's just playing. Now this is where I am start to fill in some gaps. I'll kind of point them out as I see them. So see a little gap here. I've got quite a gap here, maybe up here. And when I go back in and add final details, that'll kind of help fill everything out as well. But I'm just going to go in one more time and just fill in a little bit more. And right now I'm just looking for gaps. Okay, I think, let's see one more over here. I just kind of want to fill that in. Okay, I think that is all that I'm going to do as far as filling in the wreath. Next, we're going to work on adding details. And then once that's dry, we'll go in and finish off the brush lettering on the inside. So I'm going to switch to my size 2 round brush. And this part is so fun. This is where everything kind of comes to life. And I want more contrast because this is all pretty the same tone here. So I'm using my raw umber violet. And I'm trying to decide which leaf I'm going to run first. I think I'm going to do this blush one. Just add in a little bit of detail here. And I love when these little bleeds happen. I don't know if you can see that. But I love little unplanned surprises. I used to not like them. So I thought my painting was ruined, but now I welcome them. And I think they're fun. So when you add your details, you may choose to do something totally different than this. This is all kind of personal style and personal preference. So if you don't want to add details, if you want to do something different, if you want to add polka dots or stripes, that could be cute too. And I'm continuing to change the angle here, just because when I'm working in fine details, I find it easier to just be close to the subject. If I'm like to hold up my brush and avoid certain wet spots on the paper, it just sometimes doesn't work out. Now I'm going to tackle this bigger kind of copper leaf, and I'm going to use this red. Rose Doré is the color. It's really a pretty, like, muted, rosy red. I love it. So I don't know if you can see this. I started to make the stroke go out like that for my veins, but then I switched it and had them curve in just because that follows the shape of the leaf a little bit better. Just a little subtle change that'll help it. So I'll do that to these moving forward. Okay, now we've added that in. I kind of want to do like a unexpected limeish green for some of the details. This may be a mistake. That's part of doing art, is you make mistakes and you do things and you go, maybe that wasn't the best decision, but glad I tried it. So for lime green, I want to mute this down, but I don't want to add in red because I think that'll be too dark. So I'm going to add in this shell pink, and that's going to mute it down just enough. And I'm sorry that it's just out of frame, but you'll see it in a second. Yeah, it's kind of fun. I'm just going to leave it as one line. I don't want to overpower with the lime green. Just a little touch. And not every leaf is going to get a detail. I'm definitely going to go and add detail to my bright pink leaves, and then I think I'm going to call it good, but we'll see how I feel after I get that detail in. I might go in and add a few more. Oh, that's all the lime green. I'm trying to stick to the same leaf just so things can feel cohesive. And with this pink leaf, I'm definitely going in with Opera Rose because I can't help it. I love this color so much. This was the very first tube paint color that I bought. And it was right around Thanksgiving. Actually, I think it was on Thanksgiving that I brought my paints and tried Opera Rose for the first time and just fell in love. It's just so vibrant, and I know it's a color that'll fade, but that's the beauty of scanning in artwork. You can scan your artwork and then it won't fade. Yeah, so now when you look at my work, you'll see Opera Rose being snuck in all the time. It's just my favorite. Okay, now looking at this one more time, I'm just going to go back in and kind of fill things out a little bit more. I'm going to go in with that dark green. One moment. I always forget that the vacuum turns on right now. Sorry about that. I'm going to make myself a note and make sure to turn that off before I start next time. adding these details over the top really helps too, to just kind of clean up anywhere that felt a little bit messy before, especially on something like this where everything's kind of blending together. And then you add in those details and just cleans up and makes it look like that's how it was always meant to look. Okay, I can see I got a little heavy-handed up here, but that's okay. Nothing in nature is totally perfect, right? So we're just gonna go with it. Now, what color do I want the grateful to be? We could do maybe a green. I don't know, that might be a mistake. Maybe a brown. Maybe this raw umber color. Let's do that. I love raw or violet because it does have that hint of violet to it, and so it feels warm and cozy like that, especially for fall. Look at me adding in a little more of that opera rose. I'm gonna brighten this up just a hair. I know when you go to paint your letters, I'm using my size 2 round brush, and what I'm going to do is angle my paper just a little bit. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, I want everything down just a hair. So I'm just going to go in and erase that. That's why we pencil it in really light. And you're not committed. You can always change it. I've still got wet paint on here. Okay, that's good enough for now. So I'm just going to draw my letters a hair lower than I had them. Okay, they're not much lower, but that's okay. So I'm going to angle this, and let me just grab that practice piece of paper again. Move this out of the way because I do have some paint that's still drying. And we're just going to practice because I know I'm feeling this too. It's a little intimidating. So I'm going to show you a little bit darker what I've done. I've kind of just my letter like this, so they're not connecting and they're not the full letter, but it's enough that I can see what I'm going to be painting. And so as I follow my line, anytime I go down, I'm going to press down a little bit more with my brush. And when I mean down, I mean when the brush is being dragged upward, it's a lighter stroke, versus when I pull it down, it's a heavier stroke. And once your paint is totally dry, you can go back up or back through and erase the pencil lines that are showing. But because I drew my original one so light, I'm hoping that I can get away with just not worrying about it. You can see here that I've kind of left some things unfinished as well. Oh, whoop. A little bit different, but that's okay. I'm going to go back in and finish this off. So now I kind of know maybe something like that. I'm not sure yet. I don't know. We'll see what happens when I get to it. But you can see the thicker strokes are anywhere that you're going down, and we can have a calligraphy lesson later. But that's the gist of it. Okay, the moment of truth. Here we go. And you know what? If this gets ruined, that's also another reason why I love digitizing my artwork, is because I can go in and delete anything that doesn't look nice and try again. So even if this doesn't turn out, it's okay. This is all for fun anyway. I'm trying to, it's kind of the same width. Everything kind of got lost here, but it's not the end of the world. Okay. Okay, and there we have it. And what's fun about this is you could scan this in and shrink it down to that size. I'm going to add up for you down here. Okay, and that is the end of it. If you want to replay, it'll be ready in just a moment. As soon as it's finished processing, it will be ready to watch the replay either on Facebook or on YouTube. And I'll be back next week. Every Wednesday, I'm going to be here live doing a Watercolor Wednesday. And just a little sneak peek, November is going to be composition month. So we're going to be talking all things composition, and it's going to be exciting. So make sure that you're part of our Facebook community, and I'll have a link in the description box if you want to join us over there, and make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss anything on YouTube. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for